Hey, it's Mitchell, your rock voice coach, and today we're going to be taking a look at Panic at the Disco. Panic at the Disco is an alternative rock band. They began in the early 2000s. Their singer's got a pretty crazy voice. We're going to be taking a look at Brendan Urie's voice, not only singing a live version of the song in the last year, but also from the beginning of his career when he was a lot younger. And I couldn't get a isolated recording of this one, and I don't want to play the original track because I don't want this video to get taken down. So we're going to use an isolated version of a performance that's been edited. So it will still sound pretty similar to the original, but it won't be the same exact thing. Usually I like to separate things into the registration and the tone and the distortion, but today, because there's no distortion and because the tone and registration are so closely intertwined, I'm going to treat this a little bit more like a normal voice coach reacts video, but I'm still going to include some information and some exercises on how you can sing like this if you want to sing more like Brendan. Without further ado, let's take a look. This is the isolated vocal version. Brendan has such a rich tone, but he also has a high voice, so it's a really interesting contrast.
He's not waiting on the volume floor just for the attention, 'cause that's just ridiculous. We are...
All right, off to a nice start. Brendan, I would consider a tenor. I'm not really a big fan of using labels or voice types unless you're in a choir or you're in theater or opera, but Brendan's voice is really high. And sure, he can sing a little bit on the low side, but the reason I say he has a high voice is because all of his songs pretty consistently are living between F and A in the chorus. And as Brendan's voice continues to grow throughout his career, he's going to be singing even higher. This video is from when Panic at the Disco was pretty new. You know, they had been around long enough to create some buzz, to create some hype. They were really, really popular at the time. But I think it's worth noting that Brendan was 17, 18, 19 years old, somewhere along those lines when he recorded this album. And so one of the reasons they were so popular is because they were a young teenage band and they had a lot of young, fun appeal. Their music's really fun and exciting and mysterious and dramatic. But Brendan also just sounds like a fully grown man. I think that's pretty cool because the voice for most men or people who go through testosterone-driven puberty doesn't really settle until you get close to 30. Your voice is always changing with your hormones, and that's like pretty much just post-puberty. Like, you're still an adolescent. Your adult body hasn't even fully formed yet. Your brain isn't fully formed. So for his voice to be so mature at this young age really was exciting for a lot of viewers. And I think he is a great singer. From what I know about Panic at the Disco, I don't think that Brendan had much training, if any at all. So it's pretty cool that he naturally just sounds like this. And I think that a lot of people think like, wow, he's so good, he has this gift. And sure, it's awesome that he's a great singer, but that doesn't make you any less of a singer if your voice doesn't sound like that raw.
It's raw. It's...
Let's take a look at that first verse one more time.
He's not waiting on the volume floor.
So you can hear that this is edited a little bit. There is some compression, and I believe there is some pitch correction too. This isn't to say that the performance is lying to you, but this is a very well done live performance that has had effects added in post. Brendan's voice sounds great live in a lot of other videos, but it's more natural for a rock artist to be wavering around the pitch. It's less common that an artist's voice is going to sound this perfect. And so usually if someone's voice sounds this perfect in post, there's been a little bit of editing. And that's not to take anything away from him or say that he's not singing well. I just chose this recording because I knew there would be a little bit of editing. He's starting off with this F4. Well, she's nice usage of, for me, mixed voice into falsetto. I think he's just chesting everything, or it's like a chesty mix. Because his voice is a lot higher, he can get away with that.
Just for the attention, 'cause that's just ridiculous. We are...
That's such a classic Brendan thing to do. Ridiculously odd. He does this kind of dramatic bubble in his mouth kind of thing. And what's actually really interesting is that I do notice that a lot of tenors will do this to make their voice sound like it has more weight. So if you're somebody that has a medium or low voice, you're gonna have no issue putting weight and body into your sound. But if you have a high voice and things are living more up here, it's gonna be a little bit hard to add a deeper sound to your voice. And so a lot of people will do this yawny thing, cause that's just ridiculously odd. And I don't think it sounds bad. It might sound a little goofy to some people, but this is something that Brendan does do a lot with his voice. And I think it's interesting because I will say that his voice already sounds quite rich and full, but it doesn't really matter what it sounds like. It matters what he's feeling in this moment. And this could just be a stylistic choice. Maybe he wants to sound a little bit more suave or sultry. But that being said, I have noticed with a lot of higher voices I've worked with, this this kind of yawny, bubbly sound is something that they will put on their voice. If I put this on, I can sound similar to Brendan Urie, at least close enough, but it doesn't always feel the best for me. So if you're someone that has a high voice and you find yourself doing this a lot, see what happens if you sing without that. And if that makes it easier for you to sing, then try using that a little bit more sparingly. That being said, this is a video on how to sing like Brendan Urie, so why don't we play around with that little sound? Let's listen to that one more time.
That's just ridiculous.
His natural tone already has that like piercing, like ka ka ka. It's that ka with that cause that's just ridiculous, Leon.
That's just ridiculous.
Goes right from the oh shit. So he does have strong independence between both his registers, even though his voice is not so contrasting in quality. It doesn't sound really, really deep or really, really thin. It kind of always has this rich tone in it, which is really convenient, but it also can make it harder to sing for longer periods of time, or it can make you tire out if you're touring for an hour a day with this kind of music. So first, I want you to do something like this. Let's free up your voice. This is gonna sound ridiculous, I know, but just trust the process. Oh, 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 oh. And if your voice doesn't crack, that's okay. What I want you to emphasize is this yawny, whiny sound. Oh, 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 where, where?
Yeah, Tina, yeah! Baby wants his bottom! Yeah!
Where? Now try singing that on a note. If this is too high, you can always lower it. Cause, that's just ridiculous, Leon. We're getting really close to some Midwest emo right here. But now we need some richness to the tone. And I think one way to get some richness is to, first of all, show our teeth. We want this rock star teeth. Oh, because that's just ridiculous, Leon. We're already getting a little bit of richness. I know I said before that this can make it more tiring to sing, but in some cases, this also could make it easier to sing because now I don't have to sing so hard on a registration level. I don't have to, cause, I'm just going, cause that's just ridiculous, Leon. I'm already starting to have a little bit of that richness in my voice. And for reference, if I sang this naturally, it's not gonna sound like that. I would just go, cause that's just ridiculously odd. So my voice is not naturally like this, but we can make it a little bit more like this with some playing around. So now I want you to make a NG sound, like wing, wing, wing. And I think this is a nice way to get a clear sound. If you're somebody that has a breathier tone, we're not gonna want that for this kind of style of singing. If you're having a hard time getting rid of that breathy tone, go from a breathy sound to an NG. You can't really let any breathiness escape if you have this NG sound. So, if it's too high, start a little lower. Work our way up. You can slide up if you need to. One more. Great. We've got a clear tone and it's focused right here. Now we have our and now we have our cause that's just ridiculous. Keep that bubble in your mouth in the front. Less like and more like cause that's just ridiculously odd. Suddenly we have a little bit more of a sultry sound. I think this sound is very confident. I think when Brendan was younger, a lot of people seemed to really like his confidence and his mystique. And I know that he's a little bit of a controversial figure for some people because maybe that confidence seems like it's too much to some. But it's not really my place to judge that here. All I care about is the sounds that he's making and the sounds that we're hearing and the sounds that you're making. Let's keep going. I like what he's doing. So in classical music, we tend to have taller shapes, like the walls line the bullet. We don't really need so much of that tallness. Brendan has a really nice, the walls line the bullet holes. So his mouth is still open, but it's not like, oh, it's just more of a neutral. And he's making room. It may not be the most comfortable thing to always sing like this, so I'm not saying you need to set things like this, but if you are going to sing high like this, whether it comes more naturally to you or whether it's something that you have to lighten up your voice to do, there's nothing wrong with exploring what it means to make space for the note. I could sing this with a little bit more of a closed shape. The walls line the bullet, or the walls line the bullet holes. And I think what that's going to do is going to amplify that bubble that we have in the mouth. It's going to amplify that richness. It's going to make it sound a little bit more dramatic. It's really funny because I remember when this music was coming out, everybody was talking about like how emo it was. But this kind of tone is actually pretty similar to someone like Ronnie Radke from Escape the Fate and Falling in Reverse. It's this like, this mature, confident, masculine sound. Okay, this is a hard chorus to sing because it starts on an A4. This is why I say that Brendan has a higher voice, even though it has a lot of meat to it. For most people, this is a pain in the butt to sing. And when all your songs are like this for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hour set, there's no way you're singing this unless it's where it's comfortable. That being said, I do think a lot of people can sing this high. Let's go back to that whiny crying thing. And that NG. When I sing with an NG, I tend to feel the sound a little bit more here, as opposed to, have some composure. I'm never going to be able to sing it like that. It's just too chesty. And so while I can't teach you how to mix in 30 minutes, I definitely can talk a little bit about the qualities of a good mix. Usually the sensation isn't going to be down here. And it's interesting that I'm telling you to avoid this because Brendan probably feels a lot of his sound down here, or maybe he did when he was singing when he was younger, because he didn't really have to lighten up his voice to be more flexible. It was just like that for him. Lucky him. Now, that being said, you can hear his voice go from a chesty sound to a mixy sound in this chorus. Right there. We have some composure, where is your posture? The note being a little bit sharp or flat isn't really what I care about. What I am noticing is the difference between his chest mix. If I sing a C4 to a C5 in all mixed, it's gonna sound mixed, but you're gonna hear the tone color change. Whoa! That was mixed, but eventually it's gonna start to thin out because my voice just doesn't want to sing any higher. So when he's singing, have some composure. Where is your posture? Oh, no, no. As he changes his vowel, he's kind of riding that line between where he can comfortably chest something and where he has to let the tone change color. So I want you to make sure that you're letting your voice change color on its own terms. It may help if you take away the tone quality we were just practicing when you're learning how to sing something like this. If I was going to perform this and I was trying to sound like Brendan Urie, which I do think that his voice is a little bit inspiring for the music I make, but for the most part, I just want to sound like me. But if for some reason I was training to be someone who does like a Brendan Urie impression, I would learn to sing the chorus like this first. Whoa, have some composure. Where is your posture? Oh, no, no. I'm going to let it go where it's comfortable and where it's sustainable and where it's easy. In that and G, have some composure. Where is your posture? Oh, no, no. And then I'm going to add on my richness. Have some composure. Where is your posture? Oh, no, no. It's still pretty hard for me to sing. I'm not even gonna lie. Even though this is a chestier sound, I can just see the sound living here. Obviously, you can't see that, but I know what it feels like when you have a whoa, whoa, yeah sound versus a yeah sound. Yeah! That sound is all living in the mask for him, and it just has enough backspace and enough depth and enough diction to sound really dramatic. Let's take a look at how he does this song, like, and this is honestly like 20 years later. This is from When We Were Young Fest last year. It doesn't seem like he has to do as much work as he used to, and for good reason too. I mean, in that first video, he's pretty young, and like I said, your voice is not grown up yet. It sounds a little less rich in this one, but it also sounds like maybe he found his stride with a little bit of a mixier sound. Now, that could have happened because he worked with a coach, or he studied, or it's something that also can just happen naturally. I have noticed with people that I work with who are over 30 or who are a lot older that their voices naturally do lighten up, or they're a little less muddy as they get older. They become a little more flexible. The distance between falsetto and chest voice tends to fuse a little bit, but he's singing this with a much lighter tone here. Okay, this is something that Brendan started doing after Live in Denver, because he doesn't do it here. He just does shotgun, shotgun. But as he started to learn that he could sing a lot higher, and as his voice grew, he started doing these really high stunt things. And I think it's worth talking about them. Listen to this. Shotgun! It's really, really like high belty thing. And he does this a lot. He sings higher and higher as his career goes by. And I'll take a look at some of the later music that Panic at the Disco has put out eventually. But if you want to do something like that, it doesn't have to be so chesty. The secret to that is a coordinated falsetto and a coordinated mixed voice. We're not putting too much on the voice. And if you want to be able to sing higher like this, the first thing that I want you to prioritize is an independent, flexible, and light falsetto. One of the hardest things about being a guy and singing is that our falsetto is a lot weaker than our chest voice. And this is, for some people, the difference is greater than others. It's not to say that everybody has the same struggle, but in general, the falsetto or head voice, in my videos, I talk about them as the same thing. You can talk about them however you want. I don't think any way is right or wrong. I think it's easier to understand my way, but it's okay if you think about it in a different way. Anyways, it's really easy to want to make your falsetto stronger because it's so weak and our chest voices are so resonant. If I'm going, whoa, whoa, I lose a lot of power, and it's a vulnerable way to sing. It's okay to perform with a stronger falsetto, but when you're practicing and when you're doing exercises, I really encourage you to try singing lighter in your falsetto, because what that's going to do is it's going to coordinate the thin part of your voice in a way that it's maybe not used to being coordinated. And as we start coordinating that through your entire range, or the entire range of your falsetto, you're going to start being able to add on lighter textures to your voice that you may not intuitively be able to reach. So one of my favorite exercises for this, you can do this on a GU or an NG if you have a hard time singing your falsetto. An NG might be really good. We're still doing ooh shape either way. Ooh or let's just do that pattern. And instead of focusing on it sounding usable, let's just think about letting it stay flexible. We don't want any squeezing here. You hear mine disappeared for a second. That's probably one of two reasons. A, I've been using my voice a lot. I'm tired. I was out with my friends last night. Or B, my voice just isn't used to coordinating that way, and I'm giving it a little bit of a workout. Something starts to happen as you start to reach your second break. For me, it's around anywhere between like A4 and C#5. I start to notice that the sound kind of flies up into my forehead. And what I want you to try to do is find that sensation. You may not feel it exactly in your forehead. Some people feel it back, but it tends to feel away from here. We don't really tend to feel it in the neck when this happens. But let's see if we can find that and then bring that sensation down to a place where we would never have that sensation. I would never sing it like this. I would almost always sing it like this. We're exploring this specific coordination of the voice and the specific resonance, but we're taking it in a different direction. And this is a really nice place to begin mixing from. Have some composure, where is your posture? Even though I have a nice strong tone, underneath it all is this light registration. Have some composure. I'm putting a little bit more behind it. Have some composure. And then I'm putting my, have some composure. Where is your posture? Oh, no, no. I know I'm singing this a little bit lower. Have some composure. Where is your posture? There we go. It sounds a little bit more chaotic. It might not sound exactly like Brendan, but it's the same mechanics at play. And when we keep things nice and small, let's see what note he does on shotgun. Yeah, a G5, or the two G's above middle C. The only way I'm going to be able to do it Brendan's way is to sing shotgun first and get really good at that. Let's build from a little bit of a lower standpoint. Let's go a whole octave lower. A shotgun! It'll take some time, and the difference between and shotgun, and it's a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more challenging than just making it small one time and then being able to suddenly do it in your full voice. But starting low is going to be really helpful, because when we get into those crazy high notes, we don't have a lot of real estate in our chest voice to use. We need just enough of that thicker vocal fold vibration to create depth in the sound, but we're really relying on the thin part of our voice. And if we wait to activate that small part until the last minute, it's gonna sound like a bike clunking when you change gears. And it's also gonna feel a lot less comfortable as well. This is also how a lot of classic rock singers sing these really high notes. They put a little bit more distortion on their voices, and that's going to give it more of a rock belty sound, but whether there's distortion or not, the same principles apply. Yeah, if you look at his mouth, he still has this nice, have some composure, where is your posture? Look at it. He actually just opts for falsetto there. Photo op! But he starts to put a little bit of weight on there. So again, it's not that you can't have weight on your falsetto. It's just that that shouldn't be the only way that you sing in your falsetto. I really, really want you to explore other ways. Good job, guys. All right, and after that, dreams. Again, he is using a nice strong falsetto in performance, but dreams is different than shotgun. Remember, that has a bit of a mixture quality to it. This video was a little bit different because I didn't talk about distortion. I really wanted to try to combine the tone and the registration conversation because I think that in the case of Brendan Urie, they're so similarly intertwined. I kind of wanted to unpack them at the same time. If you like this format of the video, let me know. If you don't mind me mixing it up on you from time to time, that's good feedback for me to know as well. Let me know who else you want to learn about in the comments, and as always, I'll talk to you next time.